This is definitely the video your boyfriend watches while on the toilet. To brothers with nothing to do. This time spent $49,500 on a wrecked 2019 Mercedes AMG GTS. The car's condition seemed fairly good. It started up right away and could drive off the trailer under its own power. However, the accident damage was distributed across both the front and rear of the car. Unlike previous projects where damage was concentrated in one area. After driving the AMG into the repair shop, the guy explained, this Mercedes-Benz was won by the brothers in an auction against hundreds of people fighting their way through to successfully acquire it. Additionally, the lime green paint was just a wrap applied by the previous owner. From this angle you can also see the front cooling system was severely damaged in the accident. To repair it would definitely be a massive undertaking because the entire car has an aluminum structure. It can't be welded at will. It's unknown what exactly the previous owner collided with. When they checked the rear of the car, they could see most of the damaged areas were concentrated on the bumper without causing major damage to the body panels, which was fortunate amid the misfortune. They would only need to find a new set of bumper parts, but this was just surface appearance. What they feared most was that the internal structure was also affected. To clarify whether the car had other problems, they needed to disassemble it, but before that, they needed to clean the body to facilitate later inspection, and during this process, check if the body had other damaged areas. Fortunately, they temporarily didn't find other hidden issues with the body. Next was examining the engine bay. The entire engine bay was packed tightly. Inside was a twin-turbo V8 engine, but they didn't know yet exactly how much horsepower this engine could produce, because the vehicle information indicated the previous owner had upgraded the engine to pursue more extreme power. So this engine's power was definitely substantial. But the brothers didn't care much about that, because the upgrade meant the power would definitely exceed factory specifications. Next was checking the interior. The interior was in excellent condition, completely flawless. And the guy, to excite their supporters, did a sound test first. Additionally, he learned from the dashboard. This 2019 AMG had a total of 22,000 miles, making it an excellent salvage car. Considering that the interior didn't need much preparation, they cleaned it in advance. After getting a general understanding of the car, they could start disassembling. Since many parts on the car were already damaged and couldn't be reused, parts like these that were removed could be discarded directly. In no time, they removed a pile of damaged parts. But the disassembly was far from over. To understand the exact condition of the chassis, they even removed the doors, taking them off as well, and they actually found a hidden problem. The chassis had also been affected in the accident to some extent, and this bent chassis was also aluminum construction. But fortunately, damage was only found in this one area. After identifying the damaged parts, they could start preparations, removing the damaged, deformed radiator brackets on both sides. Additionally, they also removed the cracked cooler, and the parts ordered earlier for this AMG started to arrive. After unpacking, it was a radiator bracket, a new set of coolers, and taillights and headlights to test fit the taillights. The guy also removed the damaged rear bumper. When he removed it, he got an unpleasant surprise. The rear was dented and deformed. Repairing this kind of damage would be much more work than the front. At this point, they began to regret why they brought home such a problematic car. First, because the damaged areas were aluminum structure. Second, because Mercedes AMG parts were rare in North America, let alone for a Mercedes AMG GTS. But now the arrow was on the string and had to be shot. They could only take it step by step, so they started disassembling the trunk. After the guys worked for half a day, they finally discovered an important fact. The trunk also used a splice construction method, not a one-piece body. This meant they only needed to replace these damaged areas. Having determined the preparation plan, the two immediately took action, removing things like the exhaust pipes under the chassis and the rear crash bar. While they were busy disassembling, another huge package arrived. After opening it, it was a complete new exhaust system. This exhaust system cost them several thousand. Since this exhaust was quite valuable, they needed to install it quickly to see if this exhaust could meet their expectations. To remove the original exhaust, they worked hard for half a day before finally installing the new exhaust. Then they changed the oil and fluids Additionally, the new cooler was also installed. After completing the pre-start preparations, they could start the engine to test the new exhaust. As the throttle increased, the exhaust immediately produced explosive sounds, with occasional flames shooting out. To achieve this effect, the several $1,000s were clearly well spent. But the surprises were far from over. Another huge package arrived. After opening it, it was a complete new carbon fiber body kit. This was like divine assistance. The guy also mentioned they wanted to reduce the car's weight to the extreme. The newly arrived body kit was more streamlined than the original and visually more aggressive. In the following days, they received more deliveries. From this, it was clear these were new exterior kits. By now, most of the replacement parts for the car had arrived, and on these new components were carbon fiber louvers, which added points in both aesthetics and airflow control. A major plus. With these new kits, they could boldly proceed with disassembly. They needed to remove the entire front end for bracket replacement. To speed up the preparation process, they took drastic measures, directly removing the damaged and deformed radiator brackets, taking them off. Next, they could install the new brackets for better welding. The guy prepared the new brackets by grinding them first, since this was their first time doing this. They practiced first on the discarded old brackets for a while. After mastering aluminum welding, they could weld the new brackets onto the car. It was fortunate they practiced beforehand. Otherwise, if the welding wasn't good, they'd have to disassemble and redo it. The newly welded brackets could already support an adult's weight. At this time, another delivery arrived at the shop. When opened, it was a new engine cover, and in another wooden crate was a used trunk lid. After unpacking all these deliveries, they continued welding the radiator brackets. After welding the new brackets onto the car, they could reinstall the radiator back onto the frame, then add coolant. Having completed the initial front repair, they turned to the rear, attempting to repair the dented and deformed areas. However, after working for half a day, they saw no results and had to give up. So they shifted focus to the trunk lid, removing the damaged original trunk lid, then installing the newly acquired used part. Since they no longer had a complete objective at the stage, they decided to road test to see if the installed radiator worked normally. So they activated the car's sport mode. Things like burnouts and flooring. The guy tried them all, but this terrifying experience left them both shocked with mouths wide open. But this aggressive driving made them pay a price. The engine bay had lost some components, and the radiator had made contact with the ground. They had to end this test. Back at the workshop, they discovered the newly installed radiator was already leaking. This meant they'd have to spend another $100 plus to order a new cooler. Then they test-fitted the new exterior parts, one by one. But some important components were still missing, so it wasn't the best time for installation yet. The next morning, the guy went out and brought back more parts, including a new frame and radiator. With these new parts, they could continue the work. They needed to remove the previously installed parts, one by one, to facilitate trunk work. Since they used rivets and adhesive together, they only needed to clean the residual adhesive to easily remove it. However, during test fitting, they found a new problem. The taillights couldn't be installed properly. Considering the aluminum body structure, they couldn't use force to correct it, and they lacked the repair skills. So they had to temporarily abandon repairing the rear. Also, considering this car would be used on track, they spent a large sum to acquire another body kit, also made of carbon fiber. The only difference was, this kit was purchased used from another car owner. They would use this body kit for track days. But the most important task now was preparing the frame, since the new frame had arrived. Now, they just needed to find a way to remove the broken original brackets, then replace them with the new ones. The welding method was the same, so we won't describe it in detail. Also, the welded frame needed paint to cover grinding marks and welding spots. The radiator was also replaced. With this, the engine bay preparation was complete. The brothers immediately installed the exterior body kit. Now, only the rear problem remained unsolved. Finally, they decided to find a cut panel After about a week of searching, they found a cut piece for $1,100. Now, they just needed to remove the taillight panel. The guy was very efficient and immediately began the separation process. Finally, after trying various methods, they successfully separated the taillight panel from the acquired cut piece. Then, using the same process, they removed the original taillight panel from the car. Taking this opportunity, the guy also straightened the damaged body panels. After flattening the body panels, they could reinstall all the rear components. The fixing method was mainly rivets and adhesive. Finally, after everyone's efforts, taking nearly a day, they completed the rear repair. Next, they just needed to reinstall the rear wiring harness and exhaust pipes back onto the car. And at this time, the wheels they ordered for this AMG finally arrived. This set of wheels was purchased at half price. Originally $8,000 for all 4 wheels. Now, they only paid for $1,000 to acquire them. Now, the car's repair was largely complete. It was time to prepare for painting. Since the carbon fiber exterior parts had minor flaws, they needed to repair them. Before painting, they lightly sanded the damaged areas, then used fiberglass for repairs, then applied putty. After completing the pre-paint preparations, it was time to choose the paint color. The guy had purchased 2 types of paint. One was the original rock gray, the other was AMG's exclusive green. Now, the guy was extremely torn between these 2 colors, not knowing which would achieve the best effect when painted. Finally, he decided to test the paint on a panel first, to see if the green could achieve the expected effect. So they did this test, and the final result didn't disappoint. They immediately decided which paint to use. Having made the decision, it was time to prepare for painting. They divided the work clearly. One person handled body putty application and sanding, the other sanded the acquired exterior kits. This step affected the final paint result, so they sanded very carefully to avoid any flaws, which would cause big problems. The 2 doors also needed sanding. For better sanding, the guy removed them to sand them separately. These sanded exterior parts were immediately sent to the paint booth. Then the areas that didn't need painting were protected with masking film. Then they could start the final paint application. However, an accident occurred during painting. The paint on other exterior parts was fine, but the hood purchase for $29,800 wasn't so lucky. Yellow spots appeared in the paint. The color wasn't very saturated. This meant the hood painting had failed and needed to be repainted. Fortunately, there were many parts that needed painting. They were already planning to do it in batches. After painting all these components, they immediately moved them outside to let them bask in the sunlight. From this you could see, the paint quality was no worse than factory paint. Next came the final body color change. As usual, they first sanded the remaining paint on the body. The only thing to note here was, the body's gaps and corners needed proper treatment, otherwise it would affect the overall final result. After preparing the body panels, they could drive it into the paint booth. But before painting, they needed to clean any moisture from the body, then apply masking film for primer application, and finally the color coat. With this, all the car's painting was complete. Now they just needed to wait for the paint to dry before final assembly. The next day, the body paint had dried. Now they could remove the masking film, then install the prepared exterior parts onto the car. First was the trunk, followed by the taillights and rear bumper. With this, the entire rear preparation was complete. Only the rear sensors were missing. From this angle, the AMG's rear end was simply a beautiful work of art. Having completed the rear, they didn't rest for a moment and began installing the 2 doors and remaining exterior components. With the installation of the badge, the preparation of this 2019 Mercedes AMG GTS was finally complete. By now the 2 were eager to hit the road to properly experience this road performance machine and its driving dynamics. As usual, full throttle. From the expression on the guy's face, the power output clearly met his expectations. So grab your phones, folks, to appreciate this 2-month project. The freshly completed Mercedes AMG GTS